Now we're down to taking off this water pump so we can get in here and see what this timing's looking like. There's a 10mm bolt that's here. You have to take that off, pull this out. There's an O-ring on the inside, always replace that. I have a little bit of some silicone all in there. I was having a little coolant leak even with the new O-ring. I think my actual pipe here is bent or something. You have to take out the tensioner. It's a 15mm bolt here. Then that opens you up to the bolts in the back. The idler pulley, you can leave that on there. It doesn't get in the way of the bolts. But the one thing I will say about these water pumps is the screws are all different sizes. So what I like to do, because I don't trust my memory, is I go ahead and mark the head of each bolt and where it goes. It started with this top left, and that's 1. This is number 2. I don't know if you can see that. I've done it. I've just put this water pump on, so I already did this once. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way around. There's 10 13mm bolts, and then there's this one ugly 15 right here above the actual water pump pulley. And just make sure you do the marking the bolts thing, because I don't trust myself in playing that. I think this one went here game usually doesn't end well, so quick tip. Once you're to this point and your only bolt left is this 15mm on the inside, this should just break free with a very, very little effort. If it doesn't want to come off after you stick a little screwdriver down here in the corner of this, seems like the best prize spot. If you stick a screwdriver down there and it doesn't pop off and coolant don't pour out, you probably forgot a bolt. So before you go trying to jam on it and trying to pry it out of there like it's stuck, it's not going to be stuck. If it's still wedged on there, you missed a bolt. Go back through until you find the last bolt. Let's see if I forgot something or not. See that? Splitting right off. But there's so much of this guck shit on here. It's holding it up, which is actually a bad idea to use. I just didn't clean it up that great when I threw it back on. I was just seeing if that was something that was going to fix it. Last time I intended to come back through and do this a lot better. I was just going through a couple of steps to figure out what was wrong with this thing, and the water pump only cost like 50 bucks. Oh, I spent $100 and something on the good one, but you can get a cheap one for like 50 bucks, so why not throw a new one on it? But that's off. Now we can work on getting our harmonic balancer off so we can get this timing cover out of here. Once you break the water pump free, there's this tube on the bottom of it free that runs to your radiator. And it's a lot easier to get it off if you just go ahead and pull it up. It doesn't look like it'll come, but if you just wiggle that tube all the way up through here, you got to make sure it gets around this balancer or this pulley. Get it up through here and just rip it on up. Then you have it right here next to you. Makes it easier to remove. Shove a screwdriver down there between the rubber to try to break it free from its seal. After you move the clamp, of course. Now that the water pump's off, we've got to work on getting that pulley down there off. So we need some room for ourselves. So I'm going to take this radiator fan out the way. Probably going to take the bumper off, take the whole radiator off. So you unplug this harness right here, the main harness, run into the car. Once you get this off, there are 2 10mm bolts at the top of each side. Of the radiator. It's kind of like midway up a little bit. And then once you get those 2 out, the bottom 2 are actually just like clamps, so it just kind of slides in there. So all you do is lift up on this radiator fan and it pulls right on out. To start taking your bumper off, you have to start by popping off your plastic around your wheel cover. And then right up here in the cut, up at the top of it, you'll see 2 10mm bolts. Both of those have to come out. Actually, they don't have to come out. You really just have to loosen them so that the side of this bumper can pop out of it. It'll slide out once it's loosened a little bit. You see there's just like little hooks there, and they're usually damaged like these ones, so they barely ever really hold on. Then there's another bolt that runs through here and up here at the top, right here in the crease of it where this bolt broke. There's another 10 millimeter that goes in this way. You can see better on this side. The ratchet's inside of it right now. There's that one bolt there. Once that bolt comes out, and you have to take out these little plastic pins all the way across the top of the hood. Take 2 flathead screwdrivers and kind of pry them off, pop them all off. Then you got a whole loose bumper here. And then the only thing holding it on is your wire harnesses to like these fog lights and stuff like that down there, down low. Take that stuff off, put your bumper up, and you start getting down and dirty. Take this radiator out and everything's wide open, ready for you to start disassembling and get to the timing. Now to take the radiator off, we got to clean a couple things up before we take its 2 bolts out. We're going to take the lines off of the transmission cooler. Both sides, pop them out, boom, boom. Then that hose gets up there, gets out of your way. This side doesn't have anything really to take off. Once you get the hose that runs from here to the water pump, that's usually right here, take that hose, put that up, that's from earlier. Gotta unhook this lower radiator hose and pry that off with the screwdriver. Then you're left with transmission lines and AC condenser lines. It's the high pressure and low pressure. Here's the low pressure one down here, or I might have that backwards. Here's the other AC pressure line. Those look like maybe 12 millimeter, maybe 10. No, they look bigger than 10, maybe 12. Then you have your transmission lines. These things seem like a pain, but they're not. These little plastic things, they just click off and slide back. If I can get it with my hands. Then inside of there, inside of this part of it, if that'll focus. Come on, focus. Sorry, it's a really tight space, guys. There's a ring right here on the inside of that. But you take a pick to right here in between my finger, in the middle, that little thing wiggling. Take a pick and pull it out, and then that line just slides right on out. Easy as pie. Then you get up in here, right at the top of your well, and that bolt right there, 10 millimeter on that side and on this side, and that's what holds your radiator into place. The bottom is also just kind of got these little rivets that it goes down into, so it's just kind of sitting there on the bottom and bolted in at the top. But there's like a little hanger piece that comes off with it. When you take it off, you got to put that up with your bolt, and that's how you take your radiator out. Also, one other thing before you start taking off your pressure lines on your radiator, make sure you go up here, unscrew your valve bleeders. This will leak out all the pressure in your system. You just got to open this up, and you're gonna have to like take a screwdriver or something and pry it down onto this little tab inside of here. Once you press down on that little tab, you'll just start seeing Freon spraying out, and try to keep your face away from it, hands, all that kind of stuff. Leak out all the pressure in the system, and then take off your pressurized lines on the radiator to the AC pump, or else you'll have yourself a mess. Once you take these tranny cooler lines out, make sure you got a little bucket to drip shit in, or you're gonna have you a mess like I do. It likes to leak out a little bit on this right side especially. And then once you take the radiator out, if you tilt it either way, it's going to drip more fluid. Then after you zip your 2 10 millimeter bolts out of each top piece corner of the radiator, you come up here to your little plastic across your hood, This pops right on up. You just pull it up, it snaps right up, snaps right back into place as well. And right up and down in here, you'll see your little hanger that's holding in your radiator. You gotta move this little plastic out the way, pull it up through the top, put it off to the side with its screw for reinstallation. Same thing on this side. Alright, this is the part that can be a bitch, getting this pulley off. This is my little rig I got. Usually you get the little harmonic balancer puller and you can screw in the 3 holes to something, and then you use something like this and it zips it right out. Well, this ain't the case with this pulley. It doesn't have anywhere inside to screw anything to, so I use this little jaw, 3-prong jaw puller, whatever the hell they're called, rotor puller, whatever. I've got a socket on the end of it, and then I put a washer in between that socket and there, because it gets so tight when you start cranking this thing that it was like scratching into my crankshaft, and I didn't like that. So put the washer in between there so it doesn't damage it. Then I've got this breaker bar, extension bar, or whatever you want to call it, going through here up under this AC pump bracket to hold it in place so it doesn't spin while I'm cranking on it. And it's slowly but surely going to start pulling this pulley off of the crankshaft. I did it once already. It seems kind of sketchy while you're sitting here right behind it, cranking this wrench tighter and tighter to break that loose. So I kind of stand off to the side over here while I crank it, just in case something were to fly off and you don't take out an eyeball. Well, I'm gonna keep on cranking, and we'll come back and see how it works out. Go. Alright, it's already actually about to come off. Come down here a little bit. It's pretty far into it. It's about to pop out, so we're gonna give her a couple more tugs, see if she can pop out. Let's see what it looks like. Now it's getting easy, so it's probably about to come. That sounded dirty. Ooh. Uh-oh. Alright, so now we popped off this pulley. This is done. Pull that out your way. Now you're left with taking off your timing cover, but before you can do that, you've got to unbolt your alternator, or you can leave it on and unplug and take off all the wires connecting it on. You can leave it on there, but I think I'm going to go ahead and remove it, but I don't know, because sometimes these alternator bolts on the side, on the bottom, are a pain in the ass to get to. So alternator might stay. I might take the connections off of it, but this power steering, or I mean not power steering, this is your AC pump. The AC pump has 2 bolts bracketing onto the actual timing cover, there and there, one on the bottom, one on top. Take those bolts off, and then you can pull your timing cover off, and your AC pump is still bolted on to the actual block back there. So it'll still be holding up in place, and you don't have to take off any of those connections to the AC pump. Just the top and bottom front ones, which are, feels like 15 millimeters. Yeah. And then you have your 4 timing cover bolts after you're done with all that and ready to pull your timing cover off. Now that you got the water pump bolts out, the only bolts that are left is this one, that one, and that one. And then this whole timing cover just pulls straight off. And you'll be looking at your timing chain and your crankshaft gear. Oh, I'm gonna get to these bolts. Another quick tip: if you're new to working on things and you're like me, you smoke pot and you don't have a very good memory, it's not a good idea to go pulling off a bunch of wires and a bunch of stuff that you don't know where it goes back. So if you feel uncomfortable with the memorization of where things go, or or what wire goes where, take pictures. So say you're taking off this alternator and you chose to go the other route than what I'm doing now. I chose to just go ahead and take off the alternator itself and just throw it back. Say you want to keep it on there and you want to take off these wires, go ahead and snap you a couple pictures of the back side of it. So you know this plug goes here, the red wire plugs into, you know, the bottom part of it. You know this wire runs behind it down here to the oil filter. So that way you can never go wrong and you have reference pictures to fall back on if you ever forget where things go or how things went, what plugged in where. Pictures will save your ass. Alright, so now we're down to, I already got all the bolts off of that and that. Now we're down to actually taking the timing cover off. Something I forgot to cover earlier. After you get down to this part, it's not just these 4 bolts to take the timing cover off. You actually have to drop 5 bolts out of the oil pan at the bottom of it as it connects right here, 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 and then one on each backside up under here. I believe these are 10mm bolts. Yep, they feel about 10s. Yep, so 5 10mm bolts down there on the bottom side of that. Right there, there, and then one on that back side. And then this timing cover just pops right off. I can get the 13s out too. And big tip, guys. Make sure, like I said early in the video, before you take this radiator off, to bleed out all the Freon in your high pressure valve. I did a rookie mistake and completely forgot about it earlier, and when I popped that thing off, man, it like to made me shit myself. That thing sounded like a fucking gunshot going off and spit Freon all over the place. It got into my eyeball. I'm kind of seeing a little blurry right now, so please make sure that's a step you take, because it could have been a lot worse than what it was. I got out of the fucking way just in time before it really started burning me up. But that shit in your eyes, that's no good. It was in my mouth. I tasted it. It was gross. That shit's no good for any mechanic. So take your time. Make sure you do each step. Don't forget anything like my dumb ass. Another thing I noticed is back to the same thing as the water pump with these 4 bolts right here that take the timing cover off. They're different sizes. This guy here, not so long, right? This guy here, a little longer, and the threads don't go all the way up the bolt like it does on this one. So make sure you guys mark these. Never hurts. Takes 2 seconds. Let me go ahead and mark you as 1. Mark it up here. 2. 3. 4. This car is fucking high. Huh? Yeah. Say what's up to YouTube, guys.
What's up? What's up, dude?
1, 2, 3, and 4. Now you can never go wrong. Can't get anything wrong now. Everything's gonna match right on up. Smooth. Well, I don't remember doing this bolt on the other one, but apparently there's this bolt here. It's the same thing when as earlier. Remember when I said take your time taking off the water pump, be easy with it. If it doesn't come off easy, it's because you forgot a bolt. Well, same thing applies for taking off this timing cover. I stuck a screwdriver in it, tried to pry it, seemed stuck. Gave it a try with my hands, no tools. I just kind of yanked on it a little bit, and it's solid. So that means I missed a bolt somewhere. And this is the only bolt that I see, so I'm guessing that that's it, but it doesn't exactly look like it would be. But we're gonna give her a shot. Alright, got her cracked loose. Now there's this thing just like the other one that holds coolant and goes on the other side like we took off earlier. But this one, it's usually rusted in there real bad. On the other ones I've seen, this one looks pretty decent. So I'm gonna go ahead and just wiggle that bitch out of there. See if I can do this without cussing at it. Well, looks like not. So give me a second. I'm gonna pop this timing cover all the way off so we can get a look at this timing and go ahead and sum this video up, boys. Come on, motherfucker, puff puff give. Puff puff give. What the fuck look on his bike? Alright, what I did to get this guy off, it was giving me a pain in my ass. So I just took a rubber mallet and gently tapped it. Where'd I put my mallet? Gently tapped it back here. Put the camera back here. Back here where this little metal thing connects to that block.
Yep, right there.
On the head that we took off earlier. I just tapped it a couple times while pulling on it and it popped right out. Go ahead and replace this O-ring. If you got some O-rings to change it out, just to get a good seal on it when you put it back in. Move it off to the side. And this guy should pop right on out.
Don't pull too hard, man.
Well, it kept hanging me up over here, and I kept thinking I was missing a bolt somewhere or something, but I know I got all the bolts out. So what I did is I took this extension instead of a screwdriver, found this thick part right here behind the AC pump at the top of it. It's like a nice opening. There's dowels down in there that hold this thing all into place, and it was acting like it was stuck. So I just took this thicker bar, stuffed it down there, and kind of gave it a little pull on both sides, and now it's loose. We can lift this bad boy right on out of here. See if I can do this one hand. Nope, take the camera real quick. Back up. And almost every time this timing cover gasket seems to stick on the bottom of each side, so you gotta yank it out. And there she is. There's our timing chain, guys. Now, to see if the timing is on point, without checking the bottom one anyways, we're going to leave that oil pump on for a minute. Just going to see if these top notches line up. And I'll take the oil pump off, and then I'll check and see if those bottom ones lined up. It's kind of blocking your bottom notches. You can't check the bottom part until you take that oil pump off. This is a 21 millimeter bolt. Stick you a socket on there. Give it a turn quarter clock, or not counterclockwise, actually clockwise. If I can find my 21 millimeter. Well, Facebook, looks like I was wrong. It's not my cam. It looks like I might have jumped timing. This right here. On the right side, when you're staring down into the engine, driver's side, first cylinder is cylinder number 1. You keep turning your crankshaft down here with this 21 millimeter socket clockwise until you're on compression strokes. What I do is I just keep spinning it over and checking. So I'll bring this first cylinder up to top dead center, and I'll just get down here and look at my markings. If that arrow inside of here is pointing downwards, you're probably halfway there. It's not the compression stroke, it's the exhaust stroke. So keep on turning it until that top dead center right here matches up with this arrow pointing upwards. And the timing marks for the top part of this are just these two dark colored parts of the chain. Both of those should be right in between where that arrow points up. That middle sprocket right there above my finger where that little dot is the middle. So those two colored things are supposed to be right in between those two. So one color or one dark color here, one dark color here. So it's right in between there. And then down here on the bottom of it, it'll be a single dark colored chain cover, and it'll match up with the little dot just like this one that you see back there. It'll be like that down here on the bottom, and that thing's supposed to match up with. So what happened here is I jumped 2 teeth, looks like, maybe 3, 1 over, 2 over, so 3 over. So I jumped 3 teeth, or somebody installed this wrong. But either way, we're going to take this off, throw it back in the correct timing, put her all back together, and hope she runs like a beast. Oh, and while you're already down here, might as well go ahead and switch out the oil pump. This one looks pretty fucking dirty. My donor car that I'm taking parts off of, all the parts to it look way cleaner, and they have the exact same miles. This oil pump's not nearly as brown. Still got the gold paint finish to it from when it was brand new. It's got a little bit of oil staining, but it's really not that bad. So while I'm already down in here and everything's opened up, I'm going to change out this timing chain, the tensioner, the oil pump. I'm about to put new valves in the top end. I might have go ahead and get a whole new set of pistons. Actually, might is a little light. I'm definitely going to do it because I do see a little bit of damage from one of my valve seats on that piston right there. That's the only one. You see these little scratch marks that are in a circular shape? That's from a valve seat not seating correctly, having too much carbon on it, and it doesn't seat correctly, and it's kind of poking out a little bit when that piston comes up. So I guess that's probably what that tapping noise was that I was hearing, and it made me think it was the cams in the beginning. So all in all, if I was only trying to fix this thing, it wouldn't cost that much. The only thing I'd have to do is buy all the gaskets that I done ripped out. The lifters that were in it were technically good. I could just throw those back in. I could leave the pistons how they are and run this because it really didn't do enough damage to where it's harming the piston. If anything, I would change out the oil, lift this motor up, drop the oil pan from the bottom so I could empty it out all the way, get all the metal guck out of the oil pan. Buy a new intake manifold. Anytime you have any kind of metal floating around inside of your engine, always get a new intake manifold, because the metal shards that fly around inside your engine when you're running it with metal shavings, it gets back up in the top end. Once it gets up in your intake manifold, it's just bouncing around inside of there, and then it can literally just pick and choose which cylinder it wants to fly down into and start damaging other pistons. And that same piece of metal can go over here, bang this piston up, get shot right back up into the intake manifold, get stuck around in there for a little bit, and you could even hear a little bit of tinging and binging around inside your intake manifold while it's running. And then it could choose to come on over here and fuck something up over here. And if you don't get to these things, man, as soon as you hear these ticks, you could really be doing a lot of catastrophic damage that could have been avoided if you just stopped running it while you hear the ticking. Don't be scared to do the work, man. Watch these videos, figure out how to do this stuff yourself. Save you a couple bucks. Only costs parts, and parts for these things aren't as much as you think. Well, that'd be it for this video, guys. Hit that like and subscribe for me. Let's see some more videos. I'm gonna have these all week. Stay tuned in, guys.